coming up on the Outside of Sunday podcast.
Gloriavale is a Christian-based community on the west coast of New Zealand in the South Island. They do have midwives, and so when I was in there, they didn't have any of their own fully trained. Like, it was pretty scary, and then I hemorrhaged afterwards.
What happened? Did your midwife take you to the hospital?
She wanted to.
You didn't even go to the hospital?
No. And the story gets even a bit more wild than that. Like, I didn't just not go to the hospital. She's like, well, she has to get a line put in. Yeah, they got the vet, who was also a Gloriavale man who was training to be a vet. So they got him to come in, and he put a lure in my arm. And then third birth the same. Another shoulder dystocia, another hemorrhage.
And the vet again?
The vet again.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh, you think they would have thought, maybe we should have someone who actually knows how to put a line in? No, let's get the guy who's carving over there. Yeah. Hey, you're listening to the Outside of Sunday podcast. Is your faith stuck on Sunday? Christianity was never meant to be constrained to a weekly church service. I'm Krista, and here you'll find discussions on the Bible, mum life, and of course, how to live your faith outside of Sunday. Alright everyone, welcome to this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast. Today we have a super special guest. This is Rosanna Overcomer, Rosie as she's better known, and you might recognise her from the Gloriavale documentary that was out recently called Escaping Utopia, and also she's been on Women's Day, you were on the Dom Harvey podcast, so You've been definitely in the public eye of New Zealand. So if you don't know who Rosie is, let me just do a brief introduction. Rosie is a wife and a mother of 6 beautiful children. She fled Gloriavale when she was 27 years old with her hubby and 3 kids, and she was also pregnant at the time. So you were a Gloriavale baby raised in Gloriavale, which is a so-called Christian sect. Rosie's story was a key part of the Escaping Utopia documentary. So she's here today with us. So isn't that so special? So thank you so much, Rosie, for being here.
Thanks for having me, Krista.
It's just cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Well, I thought we'd just start off by giving you a chance to say in your own words, I mean, I've just done a little babble, but in your own words, what is Gloriavale for those of us who haven't watched the documentary or haven't been on the scene of what's happening?
Yep. Gloriavale is a Christian-based community on the west coast of New Zealand in the South Island, and consists of about 550 to 600 people. And that number changes over time as people leave and then they have more babies. But they are mostly, their numbers are what they are from the babies that are born, not from outsiders joining.
No new recruits, really?
No. I mean, there's been a couple of new recruits over the years. No one really lasts. I think maybe someone lasted a year, but that was quite long. And then there is one guy who's there at the moment who's been there for a couple of years, who did join with his children who have now left to be with their mother. And that's I think a bit of a tricky situation, so I'm not sure why he's actually living there. But anyway, it's not normal for people to join.
Yeah.
A few did join after the documentaries that Gloriavale put out about 10 or 11 years ago.
Gloriavale put out their own documentaries?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I don't think I've seen those.
TVNZ did them originally with a few producers went in, but it was Gloriavale really showing their kind of, I guess, a lofty lifestyle.
A little bit of propaganda?
Yeah, a bit of propaganda, a bit of, we're all good, leave us alone. We're all happy here. Yeah, and that was actually filmed, a lot of that was filmed while I was still in there, but only came out after I left.
Yeah, that was pretty close to the time that you left, because you were 27, you're now 37,
38.
Yeah,
38,
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So it was,
So that was kind of, this is what we want you to see.
Yes.
And the Escaping Utopia is definitely, they won't be happy about that one, will they?
No, and it's funny though, because the producers of Escaping Utopia actually asked Gloriavale multiple times if they would like to be in it, have some comments in it. They wanted their side, but they didn't want any part of it. So
interesting.
If they can't control the narrative, then they don't want to be part of it.
I see. So they were controlling the original, those first documentaries.
Yeah,
very much
so.
This one. And I'm so glad they didn't.
Yeah.
So that we could actually see a bit of the truth of what's actually going on there. So if you haven't watched that documentary, please go and see that. That's just on TVNZ Plus.
Yeah.
So watch it anytime. Definitely, please do. So something I wanted to ask you, because I don't think we should rehash what's already been covered in the documentary, because they did a great job. And I think if people want to know a bit more of the details of you leaving, they can go and see that. But this is for us to hear about the things we didn't get to see in the documentary.
Yeah.
So something I thought we didn't really get a full picture of is what a childhood looks like in Gloriavale. Like, what does a day in the life of, say, a 5-year-old look like in Gloriavale?
I can probably say what it was for me as a kid.
True, yeah.
And then I can do a little bit of what it would have been like for my children as well, because it did change over time. So back to what Gloriavale is, it started actually back in late 1960s in North Canterbury.
Yes.
And a place called Springbank was where they first kind of built their community. Okay. And I was born there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's been 2 campuses?
Yes, there has. There's been 2.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
So the original one, Cust Springbank, and they didn't call themselves this, but the outsiders definitely referred to them as the Cooperites, because...
I'm sorry. Are people who are not in Gloriavale called outsiders?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
So if you're not in Gloriavale
Okay.
when you're in there, you call everybody else either worldly people or outsiders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I call the people who listen to this podcast outsiders.
Yeah, that's so funny.
That's great. Let's keep that going. Happy to be an outsider when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So this first campus, you were born there?
Yep. So I was born there, and it was very much a community from what I remember. We had meals together. We had all communal living quarters. We lived in hostels. There was one big house that was kind of like a hostel where families lived in bedrooms, and our family lived in that big house.
Uh-huh. And that was just your family in that big house?
No. There was maybe 5 other families in that house as well. So, and then there was 2 hostels, main building, some farming. They used to grow willow and make cane baskets.
Oh, cute.
And then I can't remember a lot else other than the big veggie gardens. So for me, I can remember going to preschool with my big sister when they first opened it. So I think I must have been pretty little. And yeah, we went to preschool every day. Mum worked. At that time, I think they did week-about rosters. So sometimes I wouldn't see Mum for nearly a week. She'd leave early in the morning and come back late at night, and there would be...
So she wouldn't have dinner with you?
No, not very often, no. And that would be... They would have a girl that came in to get us up in the morning.
So you were cared for by this girl while your mum was out working?
Yeah. So she'd get us ready for breakfast and take us to breakfast, and then get us ready for school afterwards. And then we'd go to school or preschool.
Yeah.
And then she would look after us after from like 3:30 till dinner time, get us ready for dinner, and then I think ready for bed as well. And I can remember it really clearly because the one that looked after us for a long time, I don't know if I didn't like her originally, but I decided that I didn't because I wanted Mum.
Yeah.
And so I can remember being intentionally naughty for her.
Oh.
Because I wanted Mum.
You want your mum. Oh. And so it seems like from those early on days, there was still that trying to separate children from their parents.
Yes, very much so.
What about your dad? Did you see your dad much?
I can remember him kind of more when Mum wasn't there. Like he would be there when we woke up, but then he would go off to work. But then when Mum had her week at home, he would go off to work earlier. But Dad was normally around after dinner, definitely. And I loved, Dad was great. I have lots of fun memories of after dinner with Dad.
That's good.
And sometimes going to feed the pigs with him and that sort of thing. But yeah, generally we got up, had breakfast with everybody else, and then went to either preschool or school, and then came home in the afternoon at normally once we started school we finished about 1 or 2, and we'd go to work with our mums.
Okay.
So on a team, but with our mother.
And what was your mum doing for work?
So kitchen, laundry. Sometimes it was in the veggie garden, so we might be going and harvesting all the tomatoes or something like that.
Doing dishes.
Yep. Yep.
Picking vegetables.
Yep.
Yeah.
Husking corn. Yep.
And was that fun?
I think early days, I can remember it being more fun. Then once we got to Gloriavale, it was very different actually. So Springbank, my childhood, I feel is quite different to my Gloriavale childhood.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we had a little bit more freedom. So we'd go to work and we had to do certain quotas and that sort of thing. But I don't remember it being as harsh or
So was it
controlling.
kind of similar, like my daughter loves to help me with baking.
Yeah.
She loves to help me with laundry. Like she's, I don't know if it's just my daughter, but she is exceptionally helpful.
Yeah.
Like she wants to get me dressed in the morning. I think she'll be a great nurse. But so I can imagine like there is a kind of, with your mum, there is a certain element of bonding and fun in that. But there comes a point where it's just like, this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
And actually, I just want to go play.
Yeah. I can't remember doing a lot of playing. It was more kind of, there might be an organised community event and we might have maybe 6 night. So we didn't call the days of the week Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We called them Thursday, second, Thursday. And often when I refer to stuff from Gloriavale, I will I automatically do it. So so we had 6 night family night, and that normally consisted of community games, maybe some horse rides, and then they'd put on a movie for everyone. And then at school time, like at lunch break, we normally had some games and that sort of thing, but we didn't play sport as such.
Okay.
Like those early days, I don't remember playing a whole lot.
There wasn't rugby balls or soccer balls?
I mean, there was, but I can't remember actually doing much with them.
And something you just said before that I'd just like to touch on is you said Gloriavale as in the place. So it's not like a religion called the Gloriavale Christians. No. Gloriavale is just the location. And when you were at this other location, that's what you called the place.
So the first place was called the Springbank Christian Community. Okay. And outsiders referred to it as the Cooperites because hopeful Christians' actual name was Neville Cooper.
Okay.
So, and then when we moved to Gloriavale, so Hopeful's wife's name was Gloria. She passed away, I think, after the purchase of Gloriavale, but before everyone had moved over. And they named the property Gloriavale after her.
Okay.
So the property that they live on now and have for the past 25 years.
Yeah, it's named after her.
It's named after her. Yep.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about schooling. So you mentioned school was from 9 till 1?
Yep.
9 till 1, short school day. That sounds great, except for the fact that you had to do physical manual labour after that. But did you follow a curriculum during that time, or was it just maths, basics?
I think we probably did. I can't remember much being said about a curriculum, but we did. So normally we'd start off the day with some Christian learning. So we might have Bible memory verses that we needed to learn, and then we got shields. The more we learnt, we got these little sticker shields. And that was normally the first wee bit. And then, we did all the basics, maths, reading, English. And then not a whole lot else. Once we got to high school, we did typing. Well, the girls did typing, the boys did ag. But really it was just the basics. And we did once we were in high school, we did correspondence as well. So we did some art, sewing, this is the girls, typing, and that was all correspondence. So we'd send it away and get marked.
Okay. And so you did leave there with a high school education. At least. Yeah.
So I do have some NCA level 1, 2 and 3, but I think it was kind of more picked out. So I have NCA level 3 in, it's not even called sewing, but textile and something else. I can't remember what it's actually called.
I don't even know what they'd call that.
Yeah.
It's not home economics or anything.
No,
like
and
that.
then in the cooking as well. So I can't remember exactly what that was called, but I have NCA level 3 in those. Cool. But I think I only have level 2 in maths and English. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So when you were the Cooperites at that location, fairly happy memories at that stage?
Mostly. I mean, there's definitely some not good memories within that.
So there was abuse happening even
There
at
definitely
that
was
early
abuse.
stage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. I think it was a little bit freer than it is now, or than when we moved to Gloriavale.
In terms of being able to leave? Is that what you mean?
I think just maybe in terms of control.
Uh-huh.
But that might be just my childhood memory as well, which, can be skewed because I thought Springbank property was huge. And then when I went back there, it's this tiny little thing. And you have different, what you perceive as a child can be quite different to what reality is. I mean, we had a swimming pool. We were allowed Saturdays off. And the families got to go somewhere on Saturdays. So we might go and climb a mountain or go to the beach or go to a river or something. Yeah. And then come back. So, and then once we got to Gloriavale, that just got taken away.
Stopped.
Yeah. Well, they gradually took it away. So they started saying, okay, every second weekend you can have the Saturday off. And then it went to every second weekend you can have half of Saturday off. Then every month you can have half. Then it was gone.
Did you even get Sundays off?
We did kind of get Sundays off. They still had a roster. So they had a family team roster that worked on Sundays. And 1 week out of every 4, one Sunday out of every 4, your family team would be rostered on cooking the meals, doing the dishes and all that sort of thing. And then miss the next one off. The next one you'd be rostered on laundry and any cleaning that had to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So much work all the time.
Yeah.
And so it stepped up a level when you went to this Gloriavale location, and I saw on the documentary they built all of that. Yes.
Yes.
And so how old were you when they moved to Gloriavale?
I was 5 when they bought the property, and I can remember everybody going over for a visit, and we had a picnic over there, but our family didn't actually move over till I was nearly 10, so we were one of the last families to move over, and that could be why too I remember it being like having a bit more freedom at Springbank, because there was only a few families left there.
True.
And leaders came and went, so there was never one leader there all of the time. They would change, and so that could have been why too there was a little bit less organisation or control over that Springbank property, because everyone was moving away and they were focusing on building Gloriavale. Yeah.
Okay. If you're enjoying this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast, please make sure you like and subscribe. Okay, now, so you've moved now to Gloriavale. You're there with your family. Things have ramped up, and it's not great. I mean, it wasn't great even in the Springbank. It sounds like it was a bit freer, like you say, but it still was an abusive environment.
Yeah.
Way back then.
Yeah.
Now you're in this new environment, and as we saw in the documentary, you didn't meet and choose and marry your husband. You got your husband chosen for you.
Yeah.
Which was a great thing because you guys love each other and you seem like you're perfect for each other. So you must be, that's I suppose maybe the only thing you might be thankful for.
Very grateful for that, yeah.
Yeah. But something I just wanted to know is I was watching the documentary, I was really interested to know if, in terms of having babies, like, do you have a midwife? Are you having home births? Are you getting care at a hospital? Are you in the system in terms of like welfare for your child? Any of that?
So to answer the first part of that question.
Sorry, that was multiple.
Yeah, but we
can
cover it all off. I might forget. You remind me if I miss anything out.
I'll do my best.
So they do have midwives, and so when I was in there, they didn't have any of their own fully trained. They had one who was training, and then shortly after I left, there was another one who started. And both of those women are trained midwives now.
And they are active Gloriavale members?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes, they are both older women.
Okay.
Have been in Gloriavale since its beginnings, really, and have had their families. And, so then they let them do midwifery training.
Okay.
But when I was in there having my babies, neither of them had completed that, so we had outside midwives come in, and they had, I think they had some rules. Like I do remember they had to wear long skirts to be allowed to come in.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But so they would come in and just do your kind of regular checks. had the little book that everyone gets, I guess.
Yeah.
Can't think what it's called, but
like your weight and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
the
and
baby's weight, not your weight.
yeah, but the pregnancy one where your notes
I
and
know the
fill all
one.
that in and
Yeah.
take your blood pressure and
True.
listen to
Yeah.
baby's heartbeat and and then they always did offer all the things that I guess they are supposed to do.
Do you feel safe?
Yeah.
And all of that.
Yep, and then little pamphlets and that, and I guess things on vaccinations or scans, all that.
Yeah.
And as well, if they were concerned, they would offer. They'd say, "Look, I think it'd be really wise if you went and saw a doctor." And but then on the other side of that is your upbringing, where birth is really significant in showing who you are as a Christian, especially as a woman. So they believe, so they've taken the verse that if, I can't remember off by heart.
A woman will be saved through childbirth.
A woman will be saved through childbirth. So if anything goes wrong throughout your pregnancy, childbirth, then that's a reflection on who you are as a Christian, your lack of faith, your lack of obedience to God, and maybe not just you, but your husband as well.
Which is, by the way, that is completely out of context, and that is not what that verse is saying. Okay, another thing that okay, anyway, carry on, sorry.
Yeah. So that verse is a really, it's used very, in the wrong way, as you say, but we didn't know that, and that's what we believed. So needing to go and see a doctor is kind of proof that you are lacking in faith, or you then it's like you're showing to the members of the Gloriavale Christian community that you have sinned during your pregnancy.
Oh my goodness.
And then if you do have something go wrong, like I guess you're in fear all the time as well of if something's wrong with my baby, then what have I done wrong? And so you're racking your mind all the time. I mean, we had a miscarriage before we had our first baby, and
that must have been devastating for you.
It was.
Especially going from what you're just saying.
Yeah, it was. It was really hard. And it's actually something that we've probably only really, maybe in the last year or so, revisited and said, hey, look, that happened, and we dealt with it how we knew how at the time. But one of my sisters was the only one I told at the time because...
Wow.
And I'm glad that I hadn't told a lot of people that we've
been
been
you were
pregnant.
Quite early.
Reasonably early.
Wow.
But still far enough along as well.
You can grieve.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't, and I was glad that we hadn't told people that we were pregnant, because then we would have had to tell them that we weren't, and then that judgment that would come from them.
Yeah.
Besides the judgment we felt already on ourselves. And of like, oh, well, what have we done wrong? And is God cursing us? And
such a heavy burden to bear that you should never have had to bear. How did your sister react when you told her?
She was actually really lovely.
Yay.
She had a miscarriage herself.
Wow.
So she was very understanding. And, I mean, I can't remember exactly what she said, but I can remember she was comforting and didn't pass judgment on me at all.
Thank goodness for that.
But we were judging ourselves.
All those years of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just ingrained in you to think that way. So then even in birth, so my first birth went really well. Pregnancy, I got really high blood pressure towards the end.
Okay.
And the midwife did think I could be heading towards toxemia or, and she was like, she wanted me to get checked out. I didn't want to, because if I went to a hospital.
Yes.
So it kind of is your decision, but it's your decision based on a belief that you have that's based on a false interpretation of a verse.
Well, it's like a choice that you have to make, but it's just all of this drags with that. It's not a free choice that you have to make.
No.
It comes with all of these strings attached to it.
Yeah. So while the outside midwives were doing their jobs and saying, hey, look, this is what I think you should do, then we're saying, no, let's do all the other things.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was fine, and the birth went really well.
Great.
And the baby was fine.
Did you birth at Gloriavale?
Yes, so we had home births. That's what we called home births anyway.
So was there a special place for that?
They had a birthing suite. So it was just in one of the hostels. So it was just a bedroom like everybody else's bedroom, but it had an ensuite. So this is once they built the hostels.
Okay.
I mean, I fortunately wasn't having babies before the hostels were built, so that would have been harder for those other women. But when I was having them, they had a birthing room, they had an ensuite bathroom, and it had a big spa bath in it.
Okay.
So a lot of women had water births in there.
Yeah.
And it was just in the middle floor, though, of, a busy hostel. So I don't like to call it a home birth because I've had home births outside and it's nothing like it. No. And you kind of had to have people there. So
so it wasn't just you and your husband and the midwife?
No. So it'd be you and your husband and the midwife, and then the backup midwife normally, and then the midwife in training. That was at Gloriavale.
Okay.
And then the other one who was just starting training as well, she would ask if she could come.
Wow.
And then you're kind of obliged to have your mum, your husband's mum, your sisters, his sisters, your children if they are...
That's like a crowd.
Yes, it's a crowd, especially when you're one of 10 and he's one of 12 and...
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is. It's a crowd, but it's what's expected. And then also, your friends might pop in and out, or the leaders might pop in and out.
Oh.
So you kind of never know who's there, who's not, who's coming, going. And like it was, you felt really lucky if you got to have your baby in the middle of the night, so you didn't have to wake everybody up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please, Lord. 2 a.m.
Yeah. But first baby went really well. I had a water birth in that birthing suite, and then second one not so well, and he had shoulder dystocia.
Oh wow!
And it was pretty scary, and then I hemorrhaged afterwards.
What happened? Did your midwife take you to the hospital?
She wanted to.
You didn't even go to the hospital?
No, I didn't go to the hospital. And the story gets even a bit more wild than that. Like, I didn't just not go to the hospital. She's like, well, she has to get a line put in. And I kind of can't remember. I can, I think maybe the blood, I was in and out a bit. But I can remember her saying she has to go to the hospital. And in my head, I'm thinking, no. And what have I done wrong? And what have I not confessed that I have done wrong? Oh, yeah, just racking your brain.
Yeah.
And then, they got the vet, who was also a Gloriavale man who was training to be a vet. So they got him to come in, and he put a lure in my arm.
Did the midwife witness this, or was she gone at that point? She was there?
I think she was still there from memory.
Oh, my goodness. So he put the line in you?
Yeah. And they gave me fluids. And
okay.
Yeah. So,
wow.
And I do remember him, he couldn't get the line in for ages and trying both arms and
Did you have any pain relief or anything?
No.
Okay.
And then third birth the same. Another shoulder dystocia, another hemorrhage. So yeah.
And the vet again?
The vet again.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh, you think they would have thought, maybe we should have someone who actually knows how to put a line in? No, let's get the guy who's carving over there.
Yeah.
Come over here.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that was my home birth experience. And actually, even for my husband, he felt like he had no kind of say in it. Like the women just really
take over.
Yeah. They are the ones who are running that show. And the midwives in training, the Gloriavale ones, one of them in particular is really, she's in charge, and you kind of can't question her authority within that environment. And I mean, he actually really struggled. He was great, but he just felt pushed out the whole time.
Yeah.
And then, so that's birthing in Gloriavale.
Can you compare to
outside?
I mean, because you've had 3 in, 3 out.
Yeah, I can compare to outside. So first out, my fourth baby, I had a home birth. We were about 10 minutes from the hospital, and I only found a midwife when I was maybe 27 weeks. And she was lovely. lots of experience. And I remember her coming out to visit and asking if she could read my notes from my previous pregnancies.
Did you have your notes?
I did have my notes. Yeah.
They survived.
So I gave them to her, and then at the next visit she came out, she was like, I'm really uncomfortable with you having a home birth because of your history, like shoulder dystocia, hemorrhaging. But I'm still, like, this is not even a year after we've left Gloriavale. We're still within that first year. And I was like, I can't go to a hospital.
That fear is still there.
Oh, absolutely. And I felt like a lot weighed on how my pregnancy and birth went, like with what would be said about me back in Gloriavale. Like, I still cared so much what they were saying about me. Like, they'd find out I had a bad birth, and then they'd go, see, everybody, look, this is because they left the church and they don't love God and they're not Christians, and so now she's had a bad birth, This is God's punishment on them. So, I mean, to say I've put a lot of prayer into that birth would be an understatement. Like, it was a consistent thing on my mind.
Yeah.
And so the midwife, she suggested hospital care, and both my husband and I declined. Okay. Actually, it was mostly me. Hubby was just supporting.
Yeah.
And
he got to be supporting.
He did, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And then she was like, okay, like, obviously that's ultimately your decision. We are only 10 minutes from the hospital max. So if something does go wrong, like, that's where we're going. She said, I just want you to know that like, this is my job to care for you and baby, and if we need to go, I'll let you know. She went and did a whole lot of practice, putting lures in, studied on her own.
Bless her.
I know. Studied up on shoulder dystocia, did some like week classes with hubby and I.
Wow.
She was so good. She was great.
Amazing.
And then day came, so I'd had all my babies in Gloriavale overdue. Had the first 2 4 days over, and the third was 2 weeks over.
Yes.
And then, so this one I was like, oh yeah, I'll go over. But I didn't. I had her a day early. And we were out on the farm. I had my other 3 little kids with me. By this time we were going to a church in Timaru, and one of the ladies, who's just the most incredible person, had put a lot of time and care into helping me. And she said, when you have baby, ring me and I'll come look after the other kids. And
lovely.
So Elijah was on the farm, and I can remember ringing him and saying, hey, I think I'm in labour, but I'll take ages, so don't panic. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. We're just in the shed with the deer.
Yeah.
I'll try and get away as soon as possible. And then there was sheep on the driveway, grazing the driveway, and I was like, oh, the midwife won't be able to get in because they were right down and the gate was shut. I'll go and shift them into the paddock. So I walked down the road with the kids and the puppy, who was not helpful, and brought the sheep up. And by the time I'd brought the sheep up and put them in the paddock, I was well and truly in labour.
Active labour.
Got into the house, rung my friend, and she says, have you rung a midwife yet? And I know. And she says, bring her right now, because she said later she could tell. Yeah. So she came out and took the kids. Anyway, short, beautiful, quick birth.
Did Elijah get there in time?
He came. I rung him then, and then I said, I think you need to come now. So he came. But yeah, so it was just him, my midwife, and me, and then a backup came as well, just to support in case something did go wrong. Yeah. No problems at all.
No dystocia.
No hemorrhaging.
No hemorrhaging?
Nothing.
Wow.
So none of my births that I've had outside I've had any trouble with. Wow,
that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had bigger babies. They were all bigger than both my boys. Yeah.
How big was your biggest?
10 pounds 7.
I've had a 10-pound baby too. We did it.
Yeah.
Not 10 pounds 7 though.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
So that my fourth that I had was 10 pound.
Oh, wow.
And then all of them have actually steadily gone up in size. So I started off at 8 pound 5, and then they've all gotten bigger.
My 10 pounder was my easiest as well. The weight and gravity.
Funny. Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the birth went perfectly, and it was such a beautiful experience. It was us in our we had a backup plan if something went wrong, that we both felt comfortable with. And obviously we didn't want our baby to die either. So there's still this,
of course.
there's still this sense in you that goes, look, if it's going to be dangerous, which now looking back, I would go, my birth history was dangerous.
Yes.
With what I know now, I probably would have maybe looked
But
into other options. But at the time,
massively.
At the time, that option didn't even feel possible in my mind. But yeah, it was beautiful, and it was a home birth.
It was.
So
and birth is such a bonding moment, not just for you and your baby, but for you and your husband.
Yeah.
And the fact that you had that taken away from you 3 times.
Yeah.
I can understand completely why Elijah was feeling so frustrated and so upset. Like I would be so upset because you're robbed of that precious moment where there's such bonding with you and your husband at that point. Like I remember when I think about my husband and the times where I've just felt love for him the most, it's always around when we have our babies.
I know.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, it is.
I'm so glad that all happened and that you've got to experience that 3 times as well since leaving Gloriavale. So good.
Me too. Yeah.
So thankful. Now I thought we could just switch gears now. I think especially since we're a Christian podcast here, I really want to talk about the Christian side of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for one, these people are dragging the name of Christ and Christianity through the mud. Coming up next week on the Outside of Sunday podcast.
So if hopeful says you're good, you're good. If hopeful says you're a sinner, you're a sinner. So I would say, looking back now, that hopeful was my God. It's a very fear-based religion that you have where you're constantly kind of afraid of losing your salvation over the smallest thing of maybe not tying your belt in a bow, a knot instead of a bow, having your sleeves not right at the right level. Fear-based, works-based, where really hopeful was the God.
I want to know when the first kind of little niggle came into your mind or into your heart of something's not right here. Was it as young as when you're at the first property? It was? Tell us about that. Congrats, you made it to the end of this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast. Thanks for the support. Become an official outsider by liking and subscribing and leaving a 5-star review. If you'd like to help our podcast grow, maybe consider becoming a member of our Patreon community. Membership starts at just $3 a month. Not only will you be helping us encourage more New Zealand Christians to live their faith outside of Sunday, but as a member, you'll receive access to full episodes right away. No more waiting for next week. Just click support the show in the show notes. As always, if you'd like to connect with the podcast, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search Outside of Sunday podcast. And don't forget to let someone you know about this podcast.